The Galactic Council chamber was a vast circle of glass and silver, floating above the shining capital of Vorex Prime. 12 alien rulers sat on high seats, their cold eyes fixed on the single human standing in the middle. Captain Daniel Reed, Earth's envoy, stood tall even though the air was heavy with arrogance and hate. His voice was calm as he spoke. Humanity comes in peace. We wish to join the Galactic Council as equals. The room went silent for a moment, but then soft laughter began to echo from the far end. High Chancellor Zyros, a tall creature with silver scales and 4 eyes, leaned forward. Equals, he hissed, his voice sharp like metal. You humans burn your own planet, fight your own kind, and call yourselves civilized? You are nothing more than animals who learned how to fly. Reed didn't flinch. We learned from our mistakes, he said firmly. And we are not here to be judged. We are here to build something greater, together. The council members whispered among themselves. Some watched with curiosity. Others showed clear disgust. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council ruled the stars without challenge. To them, humans were newcomers, loud, stubborn, and too ambitious. But there was something about this human's eyes that made them uneasy. Reed looked around the room, seeing faces of every shape and color, green-skinned diplomats, insect-like warriors, and shimmering beings made of light. We have learned to unite, he said softly. And unity is something even the strongest empires forget. The chamber lights dimmed as a hologram of Earth appeared above him, glowing blue and white. This is our home. Small, yes, but we defend it with our lives. We ask only for peace and fairness. There was silence again, but it didn't last long. Zyros stood up, his long cloak flowing behind him. Peace, he said slowly. You think you can sit among us, after spreading your violence across space? You think you can lecture us about fairness? He turned to the other council members. This human is dangerous. He speaks of peace, but his kind prepares for war. Reed tried to respond, but 2 guards moved closer. I came unarmed, he said calmly, raising his hands. I only bring words, not weapons. Words can be weapons, Zyros sneered. And humans have sharp tongues. The guards grabbed Reed by the arms, but he didn't resist. You're making a mistake, he said. Earth doesn't want war. Zyros smiled coldly. Then Earth will have peace. Under our rule. The council chamber erupted in argument. Some shouted to stop, others demanded his removal. But Zyros raised a hand, and everything went quiet. Enough, he said. Let the galaxy see what happens when humans forget their place. Before anyone could stop him, he drew his plasma pistol and aimed it at Reed's chest. Time seemed to slow. Reed's eyes met his. You'll regret this, he whispered. A single blast echoed through the hall. The shot hit Reed directly. His body fell to the cold floor as light faded from his eyes. The chamber fell silent. No one moved. The human envoy, Earth's only voice in the council, was dead. Take the body away, Zyros ordered. This meeting is over. But he didn't know that every second of the event was being recorded by the council's network. The image of Reed's fall was already spreading through the stars. On distant colonies, humans watched in shock. On Earth, families gathered around their screens in disbelief. Within hours, the footage reached the United Earth Council. In a dark command room, the leaders watched the video replay again and again. When the moment came, the shot, the fall, no one spoke. Finally, Admiral Sarah Trent stepped forward. Her hands trembled as she paused the video on Reed's face. That's my brother, she whispered. The room turned to her. The silence was thick. She looked up, her eyes filled with fury. They killed the wrong human. Outside the building, the city lights of Earth burned bright against the night sky. The people didn't know it yet, but history had just changed. The peace talks were over. Across the solar system, deep in military bunkers and shipyards, old machines began to awaken. Hidden fleets powered up after decades of silence. Artificial intelligences whispered in the dark, preparing for something long forgotten. Earth had been silent for too long. The Galactic Council believed they could kill one man and silence a world, but they were wrong. Humanity would answer. And this time, the galaxy would remember who they were. The stars would soon tremble, because for the first time in history, Earth was truly angry. In the cold depths beneath Antarctica, the United Earth Council gathered inside a secret base known only as the Core. The room was filled with tension and the sound of distant machinery humming through the walls. Around a long steel table sat the most powerful leaders of Earth: military generals, scientists, diplomats, and strategists. At the head of the table stood Admiral Sarah Trent, her eyes red but her face calm. The recording of her brother's death still played silently on the central screen. Every person in that room had seen it too many times, but no one could look away. "They killed him," Sarah said quietly. "They killed a peaceful envoy. And they think we'll stay quiet." General Voss leaned forward, his voice low and bitter. "The Galactic Council outnumbers us 1,000 to 1, Admiral. Their fleets cover half the stars. If we strike now, they'll destroy us." Sarah turned toward him, her gaze sharp. "If we do nothing, they'll destroy our dignity. My brother went there to build peace. They answered with murder. There's no treaty that can fix that." The room fell silent. On one wall, a holographic map of the Milky Way glowed faintly, with countless lights marking alien territories. Earth was just one small blue dot among them. 4 years, humanity had worked hard to earn respect among the stars. Now, in one cruel moment, all of it was gone. Dr. Kimura, head of Earth's Defense Science Division, broke the silence. "There's something we haven't used in years," she said slowly. "A failsafe created for a war we hoped would never come. Protocol Nemesis." The room stirred. Generals exchanged uneasy looks. Voss frowned. "That project was shut down decades ago," he said. "The public doesn't even know it exists." Sarah's tone hardened. "Then it's time they remember." She turned to the command AI that hovered above the table as a blue hologram. "Activate the Nemesis archive. Authorization Trent Alpha 0. The AI hesitated. "Confirming order. Warning. Activation of Nemesis will prepare global war assets." "Are you certain, Admiral?" Sarah's voice didn't shake. "I am." A deep vibration ran through the floor. Across the base, red warning lights began to flash. The holographic map of the galaxy changed, showing lines spreading outward from Earth, hidden fleets, secret colonies, and ancient war factories coming back online. Around the world, submarines resurfaced, satellites repositioned, and AI cores reactivated after decades of silence. Humanity's sleeping weapons were waking up. The generals stood in shock as the map filled with red. "How many assets do we still have?" Sarah asked. Dr. Kimura checked the data streaming across her wrist display. 85% operational. The rest can be rebuilt within weeks. "Good," Sarah said. "We'll need everything." Voss slammed his hand on the table. "Admiral, you're talking about total war. You'll kill billions if this goes wrong." Sarah looked at him coldly. "Billions will die anyway if we let them treat us like insects. You saw what they did. My brother's death was not an accident, it was a message. And now, we'll send one back." Outside the base, storms roared over Antarctica's frozen surface, lightning flashing across the endless white sky. In orbit, Earth's first line of defense, the Iron Halo, shifted position. Massive defense stations realigned, their cannons slowly charging with blue light. Deep in space, old human warships received coded signals they hadn't heard in centuries. Their crews awoke from cryosleep, confused but ready. Every order contained only one phrase: "Protocol Nemesis, confirmed." Back in the core, the Council watched the data come alive. "Admiral," said Dr. Kimura softly, "once we start this, there's no turning back." Sarah stared at the hologram of her brother on the screen. There was no turning back the moment they pulled the trigger. She looked around the room. They killed a human envoy. That means they declared war on humanity itself. The galaxy must learn what happens when you murder one of us. General Voss lowered his head. What are your orders, Admiral? Sarah's voice was calm, yet each word felt like thunder. Prepare the fleets. Activate the sleepers. And send this message to every colony and ship across the stars. The AI turned toward her, waiting for input. Sarah took a deep breath. To all humans, the Galactic Council has executed our envoy. This is not the end of peace, it is the beginning of justice. From this moment on, we stand together as one. Earth does not forgive. Earth does not forget. The AI confirmed, and within minutes, the message spread through the network. Across Mars, the moons of Jupiter, and distant outposts near Alpha Centauri, humans stopped whatever they were doing and looked up at the broadcast. Some were miners, some soldiers, some civilians, but all felt the same chill of fury rise inside them. The stars had taken one of their own, and now, the stars would pay. Sarah watched as the signal spread beyond the solar system. She turned back to her team. The Council believes we're weak, she said. They think humanity is just one small voice among thousands. They have no idea what silence sounds like before the storm. The generals nodded, their fear replaced by grim determination. Outside the base, deep below the ice, massive hangar doors began to open. Inside them were ships unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, sleek, black, and deadly. Engines hummed, and the air shimmered as power built up inside. Humanity was preparing for something it had avoided for centuries. War. Sarah watched the frozen horizon through the glass window of the command room. The light of dawn broke over the icy wasteland, and she whispered to herself, "They killed the wrong human, Reed. Now they'll understand what that means." Far above, the stars flickered faintly, unaware that soon they would burn brighter than ever, lit by the fire of Earth's revenge. Weeks passed, and the galaxy believed Earth had gone silent. The Galactic Council carried on as if nothing had happened, broadcasting messages of peace and control to the outer systems. They called Captain Reed's death a tragic accident, blaming faulty weapons or human aggression. Most alien races accepted the lie. After all, who would believe that one small planet could defy the entire Council? But deep in the shadows of space, far from any beacon or patrol, something was moving. Silent ships, dark as the void itself, slipped between the stars, unseen by scanners. They carried no markings, no signals, only purpose. And when they passed, communication arrays went dark. Trade routes fell silent. Patrols vanished without a trace. The Council tried to cover it up, but whispers began to spread. "Something is hunting us," they said. "Something from Earth." The first to notice were the traders near the Orion Belt. Their convoys disappeared one after another. No wreckage. No survivors. Only floating ashes where fleets once were. Panic started to grow. Inside the Great Council chamber, High Chancellor Zyros stood before the other rulers, his temper breaking. "We must act now," he shouted, slamming his clawed hand on the table. "The humans are striking from the shadows." A soft laugh came from the far side of the room. Counselor Travak, a lizard-like being from Drakkar Prime, leaned back lazily. "Humans. They wouldn't dare. They don't have the technology or courage for such attacks." Zyros turned toward him, his eyes burning with anger. "Do you think these are pirates? Their tactics are surgical, precise. Every strike disables communications, destroys evidence, and leaves no trace. That's not chaos, that's vengeance." The other council members looked uneasy. They had seen fragments of intercepted transmissions, brief messages that froze their blood. A human voice, calm and cold, whispering through the static, "You started this. We'll finish it." The council ordered full security sweeps across their territories. Thousands of ships were sent to patrol the borders near human space. Yet even those fleets began to disappear. One commander described seeing a flash of blue light before his ship was torn apart by something invisible. That was the last message received before his transmission ended in static. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Sarah Trent watched everything unfold from the command center buried beneath the Atlantic. Every night, she stood before the holographic map showing red blips of vanished fleets. She didn't smile, but her eyes told the story. Humanity was no longer hiding. It was teaching the galaxy fear. "Reports from the Delta system," said Lieutenant Mora, walking up behind her. "Another Council fleet wiped out. Estimated loss: 27 ships." Sarah nodded slowly. "No survivors?" "None, ma'am." Sarah turned away from the screen and walked toward the massive window overlooking the hangar. Dozens of ships were being built. Faster, stronger, smarter than anything the galaxy had seen. "How long until the main fleet is ready?" she asked. 2 weeks at most," Mora replied. "Our engineers say the reactors are stable." Sarah placed a hand on the cold glass. "Good. We'll need them soon. The Council is starting to panic." Back on Vorex Prime, panic had indeed begun. Alien citizens filled the streets, protesting against the Council's silence. "They killed a human envoy," shouted one alien reporter. "And now the humans are coming." But the Council refused to admit guilt. They believed if they showed weakness, the entire galactic order would crumble. Zyros ordered new propaganda broadcasts claiming humans were terrorists. Yet no one truly believed it. Every new attack came faster, stronger, smarter. One Council fleet commander, in his final log before vanishing, described what he saw. "They come from nowhere," he whispered. "Their ships bend light, disappear into shadows. When they strike, there is no warning, only silence. And then, nothing." Those last words became legend among alien soldiers. "The silence before the storm," they called it. And soon, that silence began spreading across every sector. Outposts that had once shone bright went dark. Colonies vanished. Even planets under heavy protection lost contact. It was as if ghosts were sweeping through space, wiping away the Council's power. Zyros grew desperate. "We must send a message to Earth," he ordered his communications chief. "Tell them we are willing to negotiate." But before the message could be sent, the central transmitter exploded. The explosion wasn't random, it was a warning. A coded message appeared in the wreckage, burned into the metal surface. "You had your chance." On Earth, Sarah watched the intercepted broadcast. Her jaw tightened. "They're scared," she said. "Good." Lieutenant Mora hesitated. "Admiral, are we sure we should continue this path? Some say the Council might surrender soon." Sarah looked at her sharply. "Surrender? After they murdered my brother on live broadcast? After they called him an animal? No, Lieutenant. We're not finished until they understand what humanity means." She turned back toward the screen showing the galaxy map. Red zones spread wider each hour. The Council's empire was falling apart piece by piece. "Begin Operation Eclipse," she ordered. "It's time we step out of the shadows." Across human-controlled space, fleets began aligning. Massive ships cloaked in black light activated their warp drives. AI systems connected in perfect unity, following Sarah's command. And as the first fleet left orbit, the stars themselves seemed to dim. The message was clear now, not just to the Council but to every race that had mocked humanity for being weak. The silence before the storm was ending. The storm itself was coming. And this time, it carried the fury of an entire world that had lost its last bit of patience. In the far distance, deep within the void, the human flagship Vengeance Dawn moved silently, its engines glowing faintly. Admiral Sarah Trent stood on its bridge, her eyes fixed on the holographic image of the Galactic Council's capital world. "They think they know war," she whispered. "But they've never fought a species that refuses to lose." The fleet commander beside her nodded. "When do we strike?" Sarah's voice was calm but deadly. "Soon. Very soon. The galaxy will learn that humanity never forgets. And they will remember the name Reed. The Galactic Council believed they still had control. Their propaganda spread across the stars, claiming the mysterious attacks were random, blaming pirates and rogue AIs. But deep inside, fear had already taken root. Every species under Council rule began to whisper one terrible word: humans. Rumors grew faster than light. They said Earth had created invisible ships that could kill fleets in seconds. They said no one survived their attacks. They said even the stars went dark when human warships passed by. Still, the Council refused to believe. They ordered a massive fleet to assemble near Mars, determined to show their strength. 300 warships, each armed with plasma cannons and planetary missiles, surrounded the red planet, their engines glowing in defiance. Commander Thrix of the Velran Navy stood on the bridge of the flagship Vortex Spear. "We'll crush their defenses," he said confidently. "Once Earth sees our power, they'll beg for mercy." But deep down, Thrix felt uneasy. The space around Mars was quiet. Too quiet. No human signals, no movement, not even a satellite. It was as if the humans had vanished. "Something's not right," whispered his first officer. Before Thrix could respond, all lights across the fleet flickered. Then, one by one, every ship system went dark. Engines failed. Weapons froze. Communications died. Panic spread through the ranks. "Report. What's happening?" Thrix shouted. "We're being jammed. All systems offline," the officer yelled back. The silence that followed was thick and cold. Then, without warning, hundreds of tiny blue sparks appeared in the distance. At first, they looked like stars, but they were moving, growing brighter, forming shapes. The darkness of space split open as the human fleet uncloaked. Thousands of ships, black and sharp like blades, surrounded the entire Council armada. At the center stood the massive flagship Vengeance Dawn. On its bridge, Admiral Sarah Trent watched silently. "They came to Mars," she said softly. "Let's make sure they never leave." Her voice echoed through the command decks of every human ship. "All units, execute Protocol Nemesis. Show them Earth remembers." The sky exploded. Beams of blue energy cut through space, slicing through alien warships like paper. The first wave of Council ships disintegrated before they could even react. Those who tried to flee found their engines trapped in human gravity fields. Those who tried to fight were torn apart by railgun fire. The humans didn't just fight, they hunted. Every move was calculated, every shot precise. The galaxy had never seen such coordination. On the Vortex Spear, Commander Thrix screamed orders, but his ship was already burning. "They're everywhere. We can't track them," his crew shouted. A moment later, a massive beam pierced the ship's hull. The bridge exploded, and the Vortex Spear was gone. From orbit, Mars looked like it was surrounded by fire. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, 300 Council ships were gone. Not one human ship was destroyed. The silence after the battle was terrifying. Across the galaxy, signals of panic filled the channels. Every alien government demanded answers from the Council. Zyros, watching the live feed from the Council chamber, could not believe his eyes. 300 ships, destroyed in less than an hour, he whispered. His advisors were trembling. "It's impossible," one said. "No species could do that." But deep inside, they all knew it was real. Humanity had just declared itself a power the galaxy could no longer ignore. On the Vengeance Dawn, Sarah stood at the center of the bridge. The room was dim, filled with the hum of victory. "Casualties?" she asked. "None, Admiral," her second-in-command replied. "The enemy fleet is completely neutralized." Sarah nodded. "Good. Broadcast the message." Moments later, every surviving alien communication channel received a single transmission. It showed the burning wreckage of the Council fleet near Mars, followed by Sarah's calm face. Her voice was cold and steady. This is Admiral Sarah Trent of the United Earth Fleet. You murdered our envoy in cold blood. You called us animals. You believed we would bow. Now, we answer in kind. Leave human space, or face total annihilation. The message ended. Across the galaxy, leaders watched in silence. The arrogant smiles they once had toward humans were gone. Fear replaced pride. The council gathered again in panic, arguing over what to do. Some demanded immediate surrender, while others screamed for retaliation. But Zyros refused to accept defeat. "They're bluffing," he growled. "They cannot fight all of us. We will gather every fleet, every weapon, and crush them. And if they come for us next?" one of the counselors asked nervously. Zyros glared at him. "Then we'll remind them who rules the stars." But even as he spoke, his voice shook. He knew the truth. Humanity's strike had broken the illusion of power the council had held for centuries. On Earth, the people celebrated quietly, not with joy, but with fierce pride. News spread to every colony. The fleet of 300 is gone. Earth stands undefeated. In the command room of Vengeance Dawn, Sarah watched the burning fragments of alien ships drift into Mars's orbit. "This was just the beginning," she whispered. "They think they understand war, but they haven't seen what comes next." Her officers nodded, their faces solemn. For them, victory wasn't triumph, it was justice. Every ship that burned was a reminder of her brother's death, of the insult that started it all. As the fleet prepared to move out, Sarah looked at the stars beyond Mars. "Send the scouts," she said. "It's time to find the Council's homeworld." The order echoed across the comms, and hundreds of human ships disappeared into warp space, leaving behind nothing but silence and ashes. The galaxy now understood the truth. Earth was no longer the weak newcomer it once mocked. The humans had awakened, and the storm they unleashed had only just begun. The destruction of the Council fleet near Mars spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Every world, every colony, every trading station heard the same chilling story. Earth had wiped out 300 ships in less than an hour. Panic gripped the outer systems. Some species closed their borders, while others tried desperately to cut ties with the Galactic Council. Rumors filled the void. They said human weapons could erase planets. They said Earth had AIs that could think faster than gods. And they said the human admiral who led the attack had eyes cold enough to freeze the sun. High Chancellor Zyros sat in the council chamber, his claws tapping nervously against the table. "We are losing control," hissed one of his advisors. "The colonies no longer trust us. They believe we've angered a monster." Zyros glared at him. "Then we remind them who rules this galaxy." But even his voice had lost its strength. He looked around the chamber, seeing fear in every face. The unity that once held the council together was crumbling. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Sarah Trent watched from her war room as transmissions from alien worlds poured in. Many of them were not threats, but pleas. "Help us," one alien leader said through the static. "We do not support the council. We only want peace with your people." Sarah listened silently. For the first time, she saw the truth. Fear had broken the council more effectively than war ever could. Still, she could not stop. Not yet. She needed answers. She needed justice for her brother. Lieutenant Mora entered the room carrying a data chip. "Admiral, our codebreakers cracked the council's private archive," she said. "You need to see this." Sarah inserted the chip, and a hologram filled the room. It was a recording from before Reed's execution, a secret meeting of the council. Zyros stood at the center, surrounded by his allies. "Humanity is dangerous," he said coldly. "They grow too fast. They invent faster than we can control. If we let them join, they will challenge our authority. We must send a message." Another alien asked, "What message?" Zyros' voice turned to a whisper. "Kill their envoy. Show them their place." The room went silent. Sarah's jaw tightened as the video ended. Her brother's death hadn't been a mistake. It was an order, A deliberate execution to keep humanity weak. They planned it, Mora whispered. Sarah nodded slowly, her voice hard as steel. Then we finish it. Back on Vorex Prime, council members argued in panic. Some wanted to surrender to Earth, others wanted to flee. But Zyros still believed he could survive. We will form new alliances, he said. We will bring the Drakkar, the Varnak, the Ulori, every empire still loyal. Together, we'll crush Earth. Yet when he sent out the call, only silence answered. None of the empires wanted to join a lost cause. They had seen what happened at Mars. No one wanted to stand against humans. One by one, they abandoned the council. Soon, only a handful of ships remained loyal. Zyros realized too late that his empire was falling apart. On the Vengeance Dawn, Sarah received the latest reports. Council fleets deserting, ma'am, said Mora. Their worlds are refusing orders. Sarah looked at the star map. One by one, the lights marking council control faded away. They're breaking, she said quietly. Fear does the work for us. But she wasn't celebrating. Prepare a message, she ordered. We offer peace to those who leave the council. But for those who remain, her words trailed off, but everyone in the room understood. For those who remain, she finally said, we end this. The next few weeks turned into chaos. Council strongholds fell without a fight. Human fleets appeared, demanded surrender, and moved on. Yet Sarah's mind stayed focused on one target, Vorex Prime, the council's homeworld, the place where her brother had died. In the great chamber of the council, Zyros watched the newsfeed showing entire fleets surrendering. His heart pounded with rage. They can't destroy us all, he growled. I'll burn their world before I kneel. But even as he spoke, the walls around him trembled. Reports came in from his generals. Earth's main fleet was on the move, heading straight for the capital. How many ships? He demanded. Thousands, Chancellor. Maybe more. Zyros froze. For the first time in his long life, he felt true fear. On Earth, Sarah stood in the command room, surrounded by her officers. The time had come. Admiral, Mora said softly. Intel confirms that Zyros is still alive. He's on the council homeworld. Sarah's eyes turned cold. Good. Then that's where we'll finish this. She looked around the room at her people. They killed one of us to send a message. Now, we'll send ours. Outside, the fleet engines roared as thousands of ships rose from the docking fields, their dark hulls glowing faintly under the starlight. They formed a single formation, stretching across the black horizon. The Vengeance Dawn led them at the center, its engines pulsing like a heartbeat. As they jumped to warp, Sarah stood before the holographic image of her brother. You always believed we could make peace, she whispered. I tried, Reed. But they left us no choice. The stars blurred into streaks of light as the fleet moved faster than thought. Across the galaxy, planets trembled at their approach. The Council's final stronghold, once the symbol of power and pride, now waited helplessly for judgment. On Vorex Prime, sirens blared through the capital city. The sky above began to shimmer with blue light, the first sign of human arrival. The people looked up in terror as dark shapes appeared among the clouds. The final war had come. Humanity's vengeance was almost complete. And when it was over, no one would ever again doubt what Earth could do when provoked. The human fleet entered the Vorex system like a silent storm. Thousands of ships appeared out of warp space, their black metal hulls glimmering against the pale light of the Vorex sun. The alien defense stations immediately opened fire, their plasma bolts lighting up the void, but nothing stopped the advancing wall of human ships. The Vengeance Dawn led the assault, its engines humming with a deep, steady growl. Inside, Admiral Sarah Trent stood on the bridge, her eyes locked on the holographic map. Target their orbital batteries, she ordered. No mercy for those still loyal to the Council. Missiles launched in synchronized waves. Beams of blue energy sliced through enemy defenses, tearing through cruisers and stations alike. One by one, the alien ships exploded, their wreckage scattering like burning dust. In less than 10 minutes, the outer defenses of Vorex Prime were gone. "Outer ring clear, Admiral," said Lieutenant Mora. "No sign of organized resistance." Sarah nodded slowly. "Then we moved to the surface." Down below, the capital city of Vorex Prime was chaos. Civilians ran through the streets as the sky burned with streaks of fire. Council soldiers tried to form lines, shouting orders, but the sight of the massive human fleet broke their spirit. They had never seen power like this, so vast, so precise, so unstoppable. In the council chamber, High Chancellor Zyros stood staring out the window, watching the destruction unfold. "They're here," one of his aides whispered in terror. Zyros turned, his voice trembling with rage. "Then we fight. To the last soldier. To the last breath." But even as he spoke, his guards hesitated. Some dropped their weapons. Others simply fled. The council was finished, and everyone knew it. Meanwhile, on the Vengeance Dawn, Sarah received a new transmission. It was a live feed from orbit, images of the city in flames. "Admiral," Mora said softly, "the planet's main defense grid is collapsing. We can take the capital any moment." Sarah's gaze hardened. "Not yet. I want Zyros alive." She turned to her crew. "Prepare the ground strike. I'll lead the first drop myself." The soldiers on board looked at her with surprise. An admiral leading the charge was unheard of. But they also knew this war had become personal. Hours later, shuttles streaked through the sky, breaking through the smoke-filled clouds. They landed in the heart of the alien capital, where fires raged and the air smelled of burnt metal. Sarah stepped out first, her boots hitting the cracked ground. Her black armor gleamed under the orange light. Around her, hundreds of human soldiers spread out, weapons raised. "Secure the area," she ordered calmly. "No one escapes." Explosions echoed across the city as resistance units tried to fight back, but human firepower was overwhelming. Plasma rifles hummed, drones scanned the rooftops, and armored vehicles rolled through the wide alien streets. Within minutes, the capital was surrounded. Sarah moved toward the council hall, the massive tower that once represented the galaxy's authority. Now it stood cracked and smoking. The large doors had been blasted open. Inside, alien bodies lay across the marble floor. Only a few guards remained, trembling as the humans entered. Sarah's voice was cold as ice. "Where is Zyros?" One of the soldiers pointed toward the upper floor. He's in the grand chamber." Sarah nodded and began climbing the stairs, her footsteps echoing in the hollow silence. At the top, the grand chamber doors stood half open. Inside, Zyros waited beside a burning holographic map, his claws trembling slightly as he stared at the advancing human. "So," he hissed, "you've come to kill me." Sarah stopped a few feet away. "No," she said quietly. "I came for answers." Zyros let out a bitter laugh. "Answers? You already have them. Your brother was a threat. Your species was a threat. We did what we had to do." Sarah's eyes darkened. "You murdered a diplomat. You executed a man who came in peace." "Peace?" Zyros spat. "You call your kind peaceful? You build weapons that can shatter moons. You spread like a virus across every star you find. You think you deserve mercy." Sarah stepped closer, her voice low and deadly. "We didn't ask for mercy. We asked for respect. You gave us death." Zyros tried to stand tall, but his arrogance cracked. "If you kill me, you'll only prove we were right. Humans are nothing but beasts in metal shells." Sarah slowly raised her weapon, its blue light reflecting in her eyes. "No," she said, her voice steady. "We're survivors. And we remember." A single shot rang through the chamber. Zyros fell to the floor, silence swallowing his final breath. Sarah lowered her weapon and looked at his lifeless body. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she turned to Mora, who had just entered. "It's over," Mora whispered. Sarah shook her head. "No. This was just justice. The real work starts now. Outside, the battle was ending. Human soldiers were helping civilians evacuate, giving medical aid, and restoring order. The war was nearly done, but the galaxy would never forget what it had witnessed. As Sarah stood at the edge of the council hall, watching the burning city below, she spoke softly to herself. My brother, they paid for what they did. But I hope this is the last time humanity ever has to prove itself through war. The wind blew through the ruins as the human flag was raised over the council capital. The empire that once ruled the stars had fallen, and from its ashes, a new power had risen. Humanity had declared its place among the stars, not with words, but with fire. And though the galaxy would remember this day with fear, some would also whisper another truth. Earth's vengeance had ended the old age and begun a new one. The war was over, but the silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. Across the galaxy, the ashes of the fallen council drifted through space, remnants of an empire that once ruled unchallenged. Now, the flags of humanity flew where the banners of the council used to hang. The people of countless worlds watched, waiting to see what kind of rulers the humans would become. On the Vengeance Dawn, Admiral Sarah Trent stood before the massive window of her ship, looking down at Vorex Prime. The fires had stopped, and human engineers were already helping rebuild the city. But peace did not come easily. Admiral, Lieutenant Mora said quietly, stepping into the room, reports are coming in from the outer colonies. Some are afraid of us. They think we'll conquer them next. Sarah didn't turn. Her gaze remained fixed on the glowing planet below. Fear is the shadow of power, Mora. We'll have to show them we're not like the Council. Mora nodded, but still looked uneasy. And if they don't believe us? Sarah finally turned to face her, her expression calm but tired. Then we'll earn their trust, one world at a time. As she spoke, the door slid open again, and General Hayes entered. His uniform was scarred from battle, but his eyes were sharp. Admiral, he said, the Council's vaults are secure. We found data archives, records of their hidden projects, war crimes, and something else. He handed Sarah a small data chip. This is from the Council's secret lab on the moon of Draxier. It mentions a human name. Sarah frowned and took the chip. A human? From before first contact? Hayes nodded. Yes. According to this, the Council captured and experimented on humans decades before we ever knew they existed. Sarah's hand tightened around the chip. So my brother wasn't the first, she said quietly. They've been watching us all along. She walked over to the console and inserted the chip. The hologram flickered to life, showing old Council scientists standing around stasis pods. Inside them were humans, frozen and unconscious. One of the aliens spoke in the recording. They evolved too fast. Their potential must be contained. We cannot allow them to reach the stars freely. The image shifted to show files marked Project Silence. Notes described genetic studies, psychic tests, and plans to manipulate human evolution. Sarah felt a chill. They feared us even before we knew they existed, she whispered. Hayes nodded grimly. They saw what we could become. Sarah turned off the hologram and looked at her officers. Then we'll make sure no one ever does this again. Not to us, not to anyone. Days later, a great meeting was called on Vorex Prime. Representatives from dozens of liberated worlds gathered in the rebuilt council chamber. Where the old throne of Zyros once stood, there was now an open circle of seats, a sign that power would no longer belong to one ruler. As Sarah entered the room, every eye turned to her. Some with fear, others with respect. A Zarnian elder spoke first. Human Admiral, the Council is gone. But the galaxy is broken. Who will lead now? Sarah looked around the room, her voice steady and firm. No one will rule the galaxy again. Not humans, not anyone. We'll form a new alliance, one built on trust, not fear. Every world will have a voice. The room filled with murmurs, but slowly, heads began to nod. Even those who once fought against humanity understood the truth. Sarah wasn't seeking power. She was trying to build something better. After the meeting, Sarah stood alone on the balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns of Vorex Prime bathed the skyline in gold and silver light. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe. Mora approached quietly. "It's strange," she said. "We came here for vengeance, but now we're rebuilding the same world we destroyed." Sarah smiled faintly. "That's how it should be. Vengeance ends when you start to rebuild." Mora hesitated, then asked, "Do you think your brother would be proud?" Sarah's smile faded slightly, replaced with a distant, thoughtful look. Reed wanted peace. He believed the galaxy could stand together. Maybe now it finally can. She looked up at the stars, each one a reminder of a battle fought, a price paid. "We showed them what humanity could do when pushed," she said softly. "Now we'll show them what we can do when we choose peace." Weeks later, Earth sent envoys to every corner of the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as allies. Trade routes reopened. Science teams worked with alien researchers. And on Vorex Prime, a new galactic charter was signed, one that promised equal rights for all species, and the complete ban of any weapon of mass planetary destruction. When Sarah signed her name on the document, the crowd erupted in applause. Humanity had gone from outcasts to leaders. From the species the galaxy feared, to the one it now looked up to. That night, alone in her quarters, Sarah stood before the window, holding a small hollow image of her brother smiling in his envoy uniform. "You were right," she whispered. "They tried to break us, but we built something stronger instead." Outside, the stars shimmered like silent witnesses to history. The age of the Galactic Council was gone. The age of humanity had begun, not an empire of domination, but a federation of hope. And among the stars that once burned with war, peace slowly began to shine again.